of H, then H is the direct sum of M and M perp. So we will first see that any vector in H can be written as sum of vector in M and M perp. So, given any X in H, so yeah, one thing is that we already know that M intersection M perp is just the zero vector. Since M intersection M perp is singleton zero, we just need to show that given any vector X in H, there exists Y in M and Z in M perp such that X can be written as Y plus Z. This will show that H is equal to sum of M and M perp, and the intersection is zero, so it will be direct sum. So now given any X, we have to first find a vector in Y such that this happens. So it is clear what Y should be. Y is just the projection of X onto M. So that is, so we know from previous theorem. So yesterday we did this last theorem that if M is any closed subspace of a Hilbert space and X is any vector which is not in M, then there exists a unique vector X naught in M such that norm X minus X naught is distance of X to M. Of course, this will be true even if X is in M, because if X is a vector in M, then the distance of X to M is 0, and in that case your Y naught will be equal to X. So here you need not have written that this X is not in M. This is true for any vector X in M. So let X be any vector in H. By the previous theorem, there exists a unique vector Y in M such that norm of X minus Y is equal to distance of X to M. So we have got a vector in M. Now we claim that this Y will be this required vector. So if I get Y, then Z should be of course X minus Y. So let Z equal to X minus Y. So if we show that this Z belongs to M perp, then X can be written as Y plus Z. Y is in M and Z is in M perp. So we will show that this Z belongs to M perp. And then we are done. So what do we have to do to show that Z is in M perp? Then Z should be orthogonal to every vector in M. So let W be any vector in M. We have to show that the inner product of Z with W, this is equal to 0. So let us write this Z W. This is some complex number. So let Z inner product W be equal to some R e to the I theta with R greater than equal to 0. So any complex number in polar coordinate we can write as R e to the power I theta, where theta is any real number and R is a non-negative real number. So what we have to show is we have to show that R is equal to 0. So we will see how to show R equal to 0. We have R is less than R is greater than equal to 0. If we can also show that R is less than equal to 0, then it will follow that R is equal to 0. So we got this R and theta. Now if we take any lambda no for any lambda belonging to R, if we look at this Z plus lambda times e to the I theta W. So if we look at this vector Z plus lambda times e to the I theta W, this is Z was equal to X minus Y. So this is equal to X minus Y minus lambda e to the I theta W. Now this W is in M. So any scalar multiple is also in M. M is a subspace. And Y was also in M. So this Y minus lambda e to the I theta W, this is an element of M. So this vector is equal to X minus a vector in M. So if I look at the norm of this, so therefore norm of X minus this, so let me simply write this Z plus lambda e to the I theta W, this has to be bigger than equal to the distance of X to M. This is the distance of X to a vector in M. So therefore it has to be bigger than equal to the distance of X to M, and distance of X to M is equal to norm of X minus Y, which is norm of Z. So what we get is that norm of Z is less than equal to norm of Z plus lambda e to the I theta W. This is true for every lambda belonging to R. And this is true even if lambda is a complex number, if it is complex Hilbert space. But Uh, we'll see that we'll make use of the fact that this is true for every lambda in R. So now if I square this implies mod z square is less than equal to mod of norm of z plus lambda e to the I theta w square. And what is this? This is equal to norm z square plus lambda square times norm of w square plus 2 times real part of z inner product with lambda e to the I theta w. Right, so this is just by using that norm of x plus y square is norm x square plus norm y square plus 2 times real part of inner product of x with y. So and here we are using lambda is real, so I'm not writing mod lambda square. This is lambda square. Uh, Now what is z inner product with lambda e to the I theta w? So here z with lambda e to the I theta w is equal to, we'll get lambda e to the minus I theta. This is the conjugate of this scalar, and then we have z inner product w, and z inner product w is equal to r e to the I theta. So this is equal to lambda times r. So we get norm z square is less than equal to norm z square plus lambda square norm w square plus 2 times. So this is a real number if lambda is real. So we don't need this real part. We get 2 times r lambda. And this implies lambda square norm w square plus 2r lambda. This has to be greater than equal to 0. This is true for every lambda in R. So here you see that the first term here is non-negative. And if this is true for every lambda in R, then we must have this R has to be 0, right? Because if R is strictly positive, then I can take a negative large lambda such that this becomes negative. So this implies R has to be equal to 0. Because if R is strictly positive, the above inequality fails for large negative lambda. Right, you can explicitly take lambda such that this will be, because I mean otherwise if R is positive, this says that lambda is greater than equal to minus lambda square norm w square by 2r. So that means that lambda is bounded from below. but we know that this is true for every lambda in R. So therefore, R has to be equal to 0, and thus we are done. So therefore, ZW is equal to 0. This is true for all W in M, which implies Z belongs to M per. So this is what we had to prove, that this vector Z, which is x minus y, this is in M per. Is this clear?
Sir, in this inequality, if a
Yeah.
lambda is large negative, then lambda square will dominate lambda. Sir, why we are concluding that r equal to 0? How?
No, because see, R is positive, right?
Yes, sir.
And if you take a large negative lambda, then this thing will be uh, lambda squared norm W square plus 2R lambda. This is bigger than equal to 0 for every lambda. Now, what does this imply? Okay, let me try to write it properly. So, if lambda is suppose negative, then what do we get? So this will imply, if lambda is negative, then if I this is same thing as 2R lambda is bigger than equal to minus lambda square norm W square for every lambda in R, and this implies 2R will be less than equal to, if I divide by lambda, if lambda is negative, then the inequality will change, and we get 2R is less than equal to minus lambda times norm W square for all negative lambda. Is it true? So it says that for every negative lambda, 2R is less than equal to this. So therefore, Right. So it's not for the negative, I mean, the large negative lambda. Actually, if you take a lambda close to 0 but negative, then this will fail. Right. So it was not correct to say that for large negative lambda. So now, or if I take lambda to be negative but very close to 0, then that will say that R is less than equal to this very small negative number. So
So like another way, like we can see this is that like if we consider the quadratic polynomial in lambda, which is given by
yeah,
lambda
you
square.
can do by that also, because if the quadratic this quadratic polynomial is always non-negative, then that will mean that it cannot have two distinct real roots, right?
Right. Either it has no roots or a single root
So,
at 0.
so that will mean that discriminant should be
Less than
less than or equal to 0. And if you calculate the discriminant of that, so yeah, so that way also you can get. This implies R is equal to taking lambda less than 0 small. So R has to be 0, and therefore this Z with W is 0 for all W in M, which implies Z belongs to M per. Okay, so this is one important theorem that we can uh, write H as the direct sum of. So this is the orthogonal decomposition of any Hilbert space. You have any subspace and its orthogonal complement, then H is the direct sum of these. And this, like given any x, you have a unique y in M such that this x minus y belongs to M per. So that is called the orthogonal projection of M. So we can also define if M is a closed subspace of a Hilbert space, H we define the orthogonal projection of H onto M by, let's call this PM. This is map from H to M. PM of any x is equal to y, where this y is unique vector in M such that x minus y belongs to M per. Right. So we saw from the previous theorem that x can be written as y plus z, where y is in M and z is in M per. So we define this PM of x is equal to that y. So this is orthogonal projection, and I mean you can check that this is actually a linear map, and Of course, it will be continuous also. So norm of Pm of X. So verify that Pm is linear and continuous. So for continuity, if you look at the norm of y square, because this x, y and x minus y are orthogonal, norm of x square is equal to norm of y square plus norm of x minus y square. So we have norm of y square is less than equal to. This is easy. So norm of x square is equal to norm of y square plus norm of x minus y square. Means x minus y is orthogonal to y. So therefore, norm of y is less than equal to norm of x. So in fact, we have that this norm of this PM, this projection map, is always less than equal to 1. And if you take a unit vector in M, then PM of so yeah, so PM restricted to M, that is the identity map. So PM of X is equal to X if X belongs to M, then PM of X is equal to X itself. Because X can be written as X plus 0, so you get this. So the norm of this orthogonal projection is in fact equal to 1. Okay, let me write one corollary to the previous theorem. So let M be a subspace of a Hilbert space H, then M is dense in H. So this is saying when a subspace is dense in a Hilbert space. So this is if and only if M perp is equal to singleton 0. So a subspace is dense if and only if its orthogonal complement contains only the 0 vector. So so first let's assume that it is dense. Go this way. Assume M closer is equal to H. So let some vector x belongs to M perp. Then we have to show that x has to be zero vector. So if x is in orthogonal to M, we first take a sequence. So because M closer is equal to H, there exists a sequence. There exists a sequence xn in M such that xn converges to x. So because xn is in M, then what is x inner product with x if we take? This is equal to limit of xn inner product with x, because xn converges to x and this inner product we know is continuous. So the inner product of xn x will converge to inner product of x with x, and we know that xn belongs to M. So because xn is in M and x is in M perp, this is equal to 0. This is equal to 0 for all n, since xn belongs to M and
So,
x belongs to M perp.
here x was assumed to belong to M per, but then
Right,
why there is sequence in xn which converges to x?
because M is dense in H. So for any vector in
But
H,
M
there exists.
closure, it belongs to sorry, it belongs to M per. So
So it is in
uh,
H, right?
okay. Sorry.
For any vector in H, we can write as a limit of sequence in M. In
Right.
particular for X also, right? Is it clear?
Yes.
Yeah. So therefore we get this, and now because xn inner product x is 0, so this is equal to 0. So this implies norm of x square is equal to 0, which implies x is equal to 0. In fact, I mean, you can see that this proof also shows that if you take the orthogonal projection of a subspace, that is equal to the orthogonal projection of its closure, or for any subset also, right? So if you take S perp and S closure perp, they are same. So if M is dense in H, then M orthogonal complement of M is same as orthogonal complement of M closer, which is orthogonal complement of H, which is 0 we know. So you can see this like that also. Now suppose M perp is equal to 0, then we have to show that M closer is equal to H. So assume M perp is equal to 0. So then we get that so then What is M closure perp? This is same as orthogonal complement of M, which is equal to 0. And now if I write M closure, M closure is equal to M closure direct sum with M closure perp. This is by the previous theorem. If we have any closed subs, sorry, this is equal to H, I should write. So by previous theorem, H is equal to M closure direct sum, the orthogonal complement of M closure, and this is equal to M closure direct sum 0, which is M closure. So this implies that M is dense in H. Right. So this converse part we are using the theorem that for any closed subspace, H can be written as that subspace and its direct sum with its orthogonal complement. Okay, so okay, so now let's define a linear functional like using so we will look at the dual space, dual of a Hilbert space. So let H be a Hilbert space. And suppose Y is any vector in H, define F sub Y from H to F by F sub Y of any X is the inner product of X with Y. Right, so this is a natural map that we can define for any Y. We are defining X going to the inner product of X with Y. So it is easy to see that this is linear because inner product is linear in the first component. So clearly F sub Y is linear. Also, we have mod of F sub Y of X. This is equal to mod of inner product of X with Y, which is less than equal to norm of Y times norm of X. This is by Cauchy-Schwarz. By Cauchy-Schwarz inequality, we have this. So therefore, what we get is So this implies that Fy belongs to H star, and what is norm of Fy? This is less than equal to norm y, because mod of Fy of x is less than equal to this constant norm y times norm x. This is true for every x. So norm of Fy is less than equal to norm y. So for every element in H, we get an element of the dual, right? In fact, we can see that this norm of Fy is equal to norm of y by choosing a particular x. So claim is norm of Fy is equal to norm of y for every y in H. So we already got that norm of Fy is less than equal to norm y. We will also show that this is bigger than equal to. So if y is equal to 0, then Fy is also the 0 functional, right? So in this case, of course, it is true. And if y is non-zero, we take x is equal to y by norm y. So this is a unit vector. So then norm x is equal to 1, and what is Fy of x? This is y by norm y inner product with y, which is equal to 1 by norm y times norm y square. So this is equal to norm y. So Fy of x is equal to uh, norm of y. This is true for this, and we know that norm of Fy is bigger than equal to this. So this implies norm of Fy. This we know is bigger than equal to mod Fy of x, which is norm y. So therefore we get that this is true. Right, so this y going to norm y, this is an isometry from H to H star. So y going to Fy is an isometry from H to H star. Now the important thing is that this map is also onto. So that is the next result that we will show that uh, this map is in fact onto. So that means that if I take any f in H star, then it is equal to f sub y. So the next theorem shows that this map is also onto. So this is a very important theorem. This is called Rie's representation theorem. This is his representation theorem for Hilbert space. So let H be a Hilbert space. And F belong to H star. That means that this is a continuous linear functional. So that is F is a continuous or bounded linear functional on H. So then there exists a unique vector y in H such that fx is equal to the inner product of x with y for every x in H. So this is same thing as saying that this f is equal to f sub y. Also, norm of f is equal to norm of y. So once we prove that this f is equal to f sub y, then we have already shown that norm of f sub y is equal to norm y. So this we will get. So only thing we have to see is how to get this vector y. So let fv in H star and let m is equal to kernel of f. So this is nothing but f inverse of singleton 0. So since f is continuous, M is a closed subspace of H. Right? Kernel is always a subspace for a linear map, and because it is continuous, it is also closed. So we get a closed subspace of H. Now there are two cases: either this M is equal to H, or M is a proper subspace. So if M is equal to H, then that will mean that fx is equal to 0 for all x in H. So in this case, we can take y is equal to 0. Right. So for the 0 functional, this is of course true. Right? If it is non-zero functional, then only we have to see how to get this y. So otherwise, M is a proper closed subspace of H. Right. So then what we do, so then there exists a non-zero vector W belonging to M perp. Right, because we have seen the previous this corollary that if M perp is equal to 0, then M is dense in H. So if M perp is 0, then M will be equal to H. So if it is a proper subspace, then there exists. So this is by previous corollary. And because this F is non-zero functional, so there exists some X naught. So F is not 0, there exists X naught in H such that F of X naught is equal to 1. Right? So because there will be some vector such that F of X naught is non-zero, and then by scaling you can get an X naught such that F of X naught is equal to 1. Just by dividing by that scalar, you get this. So we get X naught such that F of X naught is equal to 1 and some W which is non-zero vector in M perp. So now for any X in H, X minus Fx times X naught, this belongs to M. Right? Because if you take F of this, then that will be equal to Fx minus Fx times Fx naught, and Fx naught we have chosen to be 1, so we get this is equal to 0. So this X minus Fx times X naught, this is in the kernel of F, and W was in M perp, so therefore X minus Fx X naught inner product W, this is equal to 0. So what does this give? This implies that Fx X naught inner product W is equal to X with W. So now we have to see what is the vector Y. Right? So this is true for every X in uh, H. So if I put X equal to W, we get that FW times X naught W. This is W inner product with W, and this is non-zero since W is non-zero. So this implies X naught inner product with W, this is non-zero. So now from here, because this is non-zero, so therefore fx can be written as the inner product of xw divided by inner product of x naught with w, and this is same as x inner product with y for y equal to w by w inner product with x naught. This is scalar I can take inside, and this will be a complex conjugate. So we have changed it to w with x naught. So if I take y equal to w divided by w inner product x naught, then that satisfies fx is equal to x with y. This is true for every x in H. So therefore, this f is equal to f sub y. Right. So what is this y also we know? Y is equal to, I take any vector w, any non-zero vector w in M per, and divide it by the inner product of this w by x naught, where x naught is some vector such that f x naught is equal to 1, and this y does. And now the uniqueness is very easy. So if there are more than one vectors, so if f is equal to fy1 and fy2, then x with y1 is equal to x with y2 for every x in H. But this implies x with y1 minus y2 is equal to 0 for every x in H. And then we can put x equal to y1 minus y2. Then we get that norm of y1 minus y2 square is 0, which implies y1 equal to y2. So we get this theorem. So this theorem says that any bounded linear functional on H is given by a f sub y for some y in H, right? And this y is unique also. So that says that this maps y going to f sub y from H to H star. This is an onto isometry. Now the question is that, is this a linear map? So can we say that H is actually isomorphic to H star? Can you see quickly whether this map y going to f sub y, is it linear or not? So that means that you have to check whether if I take f sub y1 plus y2, then that is applied on any x is x with y1 plus y2. So that is the same as f sub y1 plus y2 is equal to f sub y1. Maybe I'll just write this. Note that f sub y1 plus y2 is equal to f sub y1 plus f sub y2 for all y1, y2 in H. But what about scalar multiple? So if I take any f alpha sum times y, this is not alpha times fy, right? This will be equal to alpha bar times f sub y. for all y in H and alpha belonging to F. So if it is a real Hilbert space, then alpha bar is same as alpha. So for real Hilbert space, y going to F sub y is linear. So if H is a real Hilbert space, the map y going to F sub y from H to H star is linear, but for complex Hilbert space, this map is conjugate linear. But it is always an isometry and it is onto. So for real Hilbert space, so we get that H star is actually isomorphic to H. And for complex Hilbert space, we get a conjugate linear map from H onto H star. Yeah. Also, one other thing which is easy to see is that we can now make H star also into an inner product space. So it is also a Hilbert space. So if we define F sub y, so let's write F sub y1 and F sub y2. So we know that by Rees representation theorem that any bounded linear functional is of the form F sub y for some y. So if we have any two linear functional f and g, then it is of the form F sub y1 and F sub y2. And then we can define the inner product using the inner product on H. So this is we are defining the inner product on H star. This is defined as the inner product of so should we take y1 y2 or y2 y1? So this is the inner product on H. So if I define the inner product on the dual space like this, so if I take any thing, we need to see whether this defines an inner product or not. Yeah, we have to take in the opposite orders. So if I take f y1, f y2, I define it to be this cell. H star becomes a Hilbert space. And otherwise, we know that for any like non-linear space, if we look at its dual, that is a Banach space. But here we can also define an inner product and this inner product with will induce the same norm. So this will so that we get that if H is a Hilbert space, then H star is also a Hilbert space, and then we can look at the double dual also H double star. So that will also be a Hilbert space, and then we will see that the natural map from H to H double star that will become onto. So this every Hilbert space is reflexive. So I'll mention that in the next class, that every Hilbert space now becomes a reflexive Banach space. Okay, I'm sorry I exceeded the time. Let me stop here now.